Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Monday, June the 18th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day and for the week. We got a whole new week of daily doses ready to send out to you every day. We've got 10 of them this week. I love that. We give out 10 doses of happiness to everybody who's one of our listeners every single week. It's a great thing, Tom.
You sound like Dr. Walt, Dr. Walt's Dr. Walt's Magic Show. That's what you should call this. That would be cool.
Yes, folks, there are 10 cures in every single bottle of Dr. Walt's Magic Snake Motion.
Well, it's like, can our listeners, can we believe in happiness every single day to such a degree that we actually attract it continually into our lives? That's the question.
That's why we need an audience to go like this. Wouldn't that be
great? Now, was that actually an audience or was that rapids in the river? That sounded like the rapids up in the river.
Yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't really an audience. You're right.
Okay. Hey, listen, rapids make me happy. Rapids really make me happy. So that's
well, I'm
good.
not surprised. You live in Colorado. There are a lot of really nice rapids around there.
I'm just a fool for rapids. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I like being in a canoe going through them too, or a raft. That's really fun. But now that I'm a little older, it's a little bit more challenging because if I fell out, I don't know if I'd be the greatest swimmer in the world like I used to be. Well, but anyway, let's not go there.
Okay.
No. Go ahead. You can say whatever you want.
Well, no, I mean, what you're saying is true. Not sure it's really what I want to focus on myself if I'm you, but, it's true.
No, it's not. No, I want to build up my muscles. And that's what today's podcast is about. It's about building up your storytelling muscle. Because before the show, you were calling it what? You said we get flabby in our ability to tell the story.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we have flabby muscles when it comes to changing our story. We're so used to just, being zoned into the TV of life so far, so to speak, rather. And as we're zoned into that TV, we're like zombified. The moment that any kind of opportunity comes along to shift our perspective away from what is, we just fall apart at the seams because we're just not used to it. We're just, our muscle has become so flabby that we don't even know how to make the move. And as we start to exercise it by practicing, focusing on what it is we want instead of what is, and believing in it and trusting in it and feeling it, we do it for seconds at a time. And then we do it for maybe minutes at a time, And if we're really working at it, we can get to the point where we're hours at a time. And that takes a lot of work when you've been flabified,
Exactly. And those old stories, I heard this thing Abraham said recently. They said we love to be historians, and we tell, well, and then she said this, and then I said that, and then this is what happened, and so probably what's possible is based on history, rather than based on a story of what we really do want, and getting that story out ahead of what's actually happening and then letting our life catch up with it. I like that saying. I put that in the little description about today's podcast because
that was good.
Getting our story out ahead of what's actually happening and letting our life catch up with it. And now that's easy to say, but of course all this is easy to say, but to have the experience of it, it just takes, like you say, practice, getting those muscles going. And for me, it takes a huge faith and belief in what is in my vortex is the thing or the things that I really do want. And that there's no reason why life won't give me those things.
I was struck by a word that you used too. You used the word history. And there are some who point out that history is actually two words molded into one in one sense.
Right.
His story.
Right.
So even history is a story that we tell ourselves.
Right, and it's a patriarchal story. We don't need to
usually. Well, not always, but usually.
No, yeah. But that's true. Go ahead.
So does that mean when a lady tells it, is it a mystery? No, wait a minute.
It's her story.
Right. It's a her story. That's it. Yeah, that's right. I got the wrong pronoun.
Yeah. There's actually some people that are really strong about, never using that word, his story anymore.
Oh, what do they use
Um,
instead?
I don't know. I just know that I've seen it. It was a while ago. I saw it in a magazine or something. A feminist was explaining, or a woman was explaining it in a different way, but using a different word. I just don't remember what it was. Sorry, that would have been fun if I did, but I don't remember.
I don't know.
So this thing is that um, that we have to become prophetic. We
Yes.
literally have to be the prophesizers of our own new story,
That's pretty
and
daunting all by itself. I mean, prophecy, that's like reserved for the few, right?
yeah, well, but you could just say you have to become a storyteller. So
Ah.
that's what is really cool. Like you have to become like a Hollywood writer, producer, director, where you actually say, this is the story we're going to tell. This is what my character is going to experience. This is where they're going to walk on stage. This is, what's going to happen. And then set it all up and make storyboards and all those things they do, probably all on computer now, of course. And then, they're going to show that to everybody who's part of the movie, and we're all going to create the story together. It's amazing how they do that when you think about it.
Hmm.
They all come together with this amazing view of what it's going to look like and sound like and everything. And God, the actors then totally prepare for the entire thing, all to tell a story that doesn't even it's not real, and to make it real. And that's what we're sort of up against, or not up against, but that's our opportunity, right? Is if we want a new, better feeling life, we've got to have a new, better feeling story.
Well, I was thinking something early this morning, right after I got up, and it's a thought I've had before, but for some reason it was resonating. Maybe it was like anticipating our topic today.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we are all masters with the law of attraction. And I say that
Uh-huh.
because the law of attraction is involved in every single aspect of everything that we do every single day. It's continuous. And
Uh-huh.
it touches everything. It touches every decision we make. It touches everything we say. It touches everything we think. And it produces results that we can't always trace the threads. In fact, most often we can't even see where the threads are. Like, where did that come from? But the
Hmm.
point is, it's affecting everything. So we already are very, very experienced at interacting with the law of attraction. That makes
Hmm.
us masters in my mind. Now, have we mastered it as far as we would like to? Perhaps not. Perhaps what we want to do is attract only what we want to attract and not the stuff we don't want to attract, which is, of course, what most people have in mind when they think
Yeah.
about the law of attraction. So
Yeah.
that's where the better feeling stories come into it. It's like we're already masters. Now we're just trying to become graduate, what do you call it, PhDs.
Hmm. Yeah. And so we have to do it in advance of a manifestation. And it's so, normal, and we've been so trained to look at what is. And it's just amazing how powerful that is to tell the story of what is rather than the story of what we would prefer. And how much we get this thing, as Abraham says, stuck in our craw about the fact of, well, what if it doesn't happen? What if I tell the story and I end up with a similar problem to what I've had before, a similar situation? What if this thing doesn't improve? What if my new career that I'm trying to create doesn't manifest the way I want it to? What if the new relationship I'm imagining that I'm going to allow into my life and it doesn't turn out that way? He or she
Mm.
doesn't show up, or somebody shows up and it's not what I want, and because I'm still vibrating with this old fear, this old thing that has plagued me before. And
And usually
so,
more than one. That's the thing that gets me. I mean,
what do you mean?
one of the things that I notice as I learn how to be a better attractor is the role that resistance and allowing plays. And
Mm,
the resistances, first of all, the first time I heard resistance, I said, "Where is mine?" Because I didn't know I had any,
wow.
which is a fairly common reaction.
Yeah,
But
I can
as I
relate.
became more and more aware of it, and I began to notice, like every once in a while, something would come up, and I'd realize, oh, that's me resisting. I never thought of that
Mm,
as resistance. And
uh-huh.
then, I go further down the road, and oh, there's another resistance.
Uh-huh.
Well, now I understand that there are lots of different ways we put up resistance that usually we don't even know, we aren't even aware that we are resisting when we do that. And most
Yeah.
of them are done, without conscious awareness. We're just, do it by default, subconscious, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
Well, that means that whenever we're trying to make a shift, those resistances haven't gone away. Now we're trying to shift against those resistances.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. The challenge is, how do you make the shift and simultaneously move the resistances out of the way so that you can get what you want. That's why it is when the first few times that we try to attract something, it doesn't come out the way we wanted it to, or it doesn't come out at all. And then we say, well, why didn't it come out? Well, it didn't come out because we have all these little hidden resistances in the way, often big hidden resistances. And
Yeah.
and that's the thing to understand. So, okay, now that we know that, how do we handle the situation of, I want to attract something, it's not coming up the way I want to, I got all these resistances in the way, what the hell do I do?
And what do you do?
What I do is I have one main goal at all times, and that is to get myself to be as happy as I can be, to get that that high flying, high vibration place that Abraham talks about, that high flying disc, as they once called it.
Yeah.
Because if I can get to there and stay there, then any time that I am thinking or feeling or doing or talking about anything, I am attracting truest to what it is that I really want. And now I don't have to worry about whether or not I am requesting the ideal relationship or the money or the health or whatever. I don't have to focus on that so much. Because as Abraham has pointed out, I mean, that's already in our vortex. We have many times over said, I really, really want that.
Yeah.
What we're trying to learn is how to let it in, how to allow it, how to remove the resistances. And the place where we can have the fewest resistances is the place where we're happy, where we're feeling good. That's where there's the least amount of resistance. Abraham has taught us that very, very clearly. So that's my goal. My goal at all times is to be as happy as I can be. Now, do I reach my goal at all times? No, I can't honestly say that. But I do keep getting better and better at it. And that's the score I keep. How much better am I getting at it? Am I getting better at it every day? Am I improving? Sometimes maybe I slide back. Do I regain that ground the next day and maybe a little bit more? Always trying to find ways to get myself feeling happier and more joyous and more excited and more thrilled with life and all that kind of thing. That's my approach.
So being unconditionally happy, or both, like conditionally and unconditionally happy, right? Just as long as it's happy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, happier, let's put it this way. Always happier than it was.
Yeah.
I want to reach for the higher goal. Is it conditional or unconditional? I don't know. I guess conditional is what we move through to get to unconditional.
Yeah.
I aim for the highest I can reach today. If I can reach this high, then I reach that high. If I can reach higher than that, I reach higher than that.
Yeah. When I was feeling particularly depressed or more challenged in my life about 4 years ago, and I was just starting to get into Abraham in a big way, I heard about this thing they said, which is, I've said it on the podcast before, but that you say to yourself, my dominant intent for today is to feel good. From this moment forward, I choose to feel good no matter what. And then for weeks on end or months, I had that up on my mirror in the bathroom, and it would just be like, that's my choice. It was like, that's what I'm choosing today. And it was sort of like unconditional in that sense, that I really realized, I think sometimes the degree to which we're suffering, at least this has been true for me, the degree to which I'm suffering or in pain, it almost makes it easier for a technique to work, because I can latch onto it with all this gusto and all this, sincere need to change my experience. And so when it's like when you're desperate, you like, sometimes you hear those stories, the car was on the woman's daughter and she picked the car up off her daughter, because she had this superhuman strength because she was so in need of saving her daughter's life. And when I've been really, really deep in need of telling a new story, it's a lot easier to tell that story when I feel the real urgency of it, or the real longing to have it be different, or to choose feeling good. It just was amazing. And now I find that I'm still able to do that, but I'm now adding all kinds of other things to the situation that help me to continue to turn towards a better feeling story. I don't know what all I'm saying here, but
Well, you're raising an interesting point because the simple fact is we do tend to demonstrate an ability to get really impassioned about something when we're in the greatest trials. I mean, that's a theme
yeah.
that Joel has talked about over and over and over again in the times that he and I have done podcasts together about how he actually is in favor of struggle. He thinks struggle is a good thing. He doesn't believe in suffering, but struggle is a great thing because that's where you get your greatest power to make the greatest leaps in your life. And I have to say it's true. I mean, from everything that I've seen and everything that I've heard, talking to other people and so forth, it's always the people who are in the greatest pain, the greatest suffering, not suffering, the greatest pain, the greatest struggle, the most difficult, trying circumstances, who produce the most spectacular results when they break through.
Mm. Yeah. So I think that's maybe what I'm trying to needle myself, use the acupuncture needles to get myself into this vibration here of like, I want to change certain things in my life, and I want to open my perspective to allow in. It's sort of the whole thing that we started the podcast with is how do you get out ahead of what is in your life? How do you tell a story that's out ahead of what is and then allow your life to catch up to that story? And I think there really, for me, has to be a true enthusiasm about the thing that I want. You know, like let's say I want a new career. I want to manifest something in my career that I've been wanting to have for a really long time. Maybe an increased income or an increased like something I really want to do, a type of work that feels fantastic, but I haven't yet really created it. And same about, you know, if you want an improved health situation, you know, and you've been stuck in a particular health situation or an improved relationship situation, and you felt like the relationship you've had has been wonderful, but there's something missing. You know that this isn't quite what you really want, you know, and so how do you get your story out ahead of your situation so that your life then can really become that thing? You know, that your vibration will allow that to finally happen. That's what I'm looking at right now. Like, and so much it's been just trusting that what's in my vortex is that it is there. You know, that I've lived enough to put a ton of things into my vortex about the kind of work I want to do, or the kind of money I want to have, or the kind of health or relationship I want to have. I've lived in every arena of my life. I've lived enough to have put that into my vortex. And so now it's like, how can I stay in that story and quit telling these stories of doubt, you know, these stories of worry about it not happening, the stories of being duped again or of failing, you know, or of, you know, how come it, you know, it's been so long and it's going to continue to be so long. And so, you know, we tell the story of, yes, I want it. Yes, I want it. But, yes, I want it. Yes, I want it. But there's this and there's this and there's this, you know, and it's all those conditions of it not happening that I feel like I must be repeating those in various areas of my life. You know, otherwise, why wouldn't it happen? You know?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that when we find ourselves not in that place of, you know, strongly desiring something, because you talked about how important it is to desire something strongly, I've begun to realize that when I'm in that place where I'm not desiring strongly, it's actually a signal to me. It's a signal to me that I'm not allowing myself to want strongly. I'm actually resisting wanting strongly. The want is actually there, and it's actually fairly strong, but I am repressing it in some way. And in the way, in the act of repressing it, I basically talk myself out of it.
Or are you telling the just a different story of what you want?
I suppose that's probably true. I am still learning how I need to allow and how I'm failing to allow when it comes to the strong, deep desires. I do know that in myself, for myself, from my own history, I have a long history of repressing my own desires. I can't tell you all the reasons why because I haven't gotten that part yet. I'm in the middle of the journey. I haven't figured that part out yet. But what I can tell you is that I'm aware that I am the one who's blocking it. And on those occasions where I manage to kind of open the doors wide, so to speak, all of a sudden the desire gets strong. And then the moment that I do something to repress it again, and I haven't totally figured out what those things are that I'm doing, the moment that I do that is the moment that the desire becomes weak. And usually it is associated in some way with the weakness is associated with doubt and with discouragement. And when I feel that doubt or that discouragement, well, that's when, yeah, I'm just saying it again, that's when the desire gets weak to the point where it almost disappears. And yet it's still there. The fact that it disappears, this is what I'm getting, and this is what I'm finally learning very recently. When it seems to disappear, the only reason it disappeared is because I resisted it. It's actually still there. If I were to find a way to unrepress it, to uncover it, so to speak, it would emerge just as powerful as it was before. The desire hasn't changed. It was me who blocked it. That's the message I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and can you imagine like this week being the week that you have breakthroughs in several areas of your life?
I think I just set that up actually.
Yeah. So how is that going to happen? Is like
I have no clue.
What would you do different?
What I do different?
If you wanted to have a breakthrough in some area that has been difficult for you for a long time, how would you have a breakthrough this week?
I don't honestly know it because, like I said, I still haven't figured out how I'm repressing it. But, and this is where I go back to square one again. I know, I trust, this trust has really been building for me because a belief is a thought we think over and over again. I keep thinking this one over and over again, and it continues to ring true in my mind and in my heart. I know that the more that I focus on feeling good, I won't have to go out of my way to find what how I'm blocking or why I'm blocking. It will emerge. So I can't tell you exactly how it's all going to play out, and I can't even tell you it's going to happen this week. But I am moving toward the point where more and more stuff is going to become evident to me. More and more ways that I repress my own urges, my own desires is going to become evident to me. And as they become evident, my job is to notice them and be aware of them and to recognize them for what they are when they pop up and not get pissed off because it really seems like somebody else was doing something to me or I had bad luck or, the fortunes of fate were against me or whatever. Because that's the typical reaction. if you had just recorded everything that you just said and then played it back to yourself, that's the story that you're telling yourself, right? About that's the current story, yeah. And it's an evolving story. It's a story that will actually improve over time. I mean, I know right now that's not a high-flying story.
Now that's the story you're telling right now to improve it.
Yeah, it's one step better than what I was feeling yesterday.
Well, I mean, I was one step better than what you were feeling a minute ago.
Or a minute ago, that's true, yeah.
See, that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at what's the story you're telling right now about this situation. We could be doing the same thing with me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could expand the story kind of hypothetically. My belief level might not be real strong, but I could start to expand it, and that's still a good thing to do. I could say that, you know what, I am really close to breaking this thing open. This week I'm going to start getting all kinds of fabulous and scary and amazing and terrifying stuff popping up that will, on the one hand, encourage me to just keep staring at what is, and on the other hand, give me the opportunity to recognize that this is me putting a block in my own way, and all I have to do is let go of that block, whatever it is, and all of a sudden my desires will increase. They'll seem to increase. They actually haven't increased at all. They'll be as powerful as they always were. But within me, it will feel like they've increased. All I have to do is just notice it. And the way to do that is to get into a happy place so that it happens more and more often so that I can notice it more and more often. And I can trust that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen at some point. But I can also believe that it's going to happen this week. And that's what so as I tell my story here, I'm like trying to convince myself in a way. I'm trying to believe that, yeah, I can imagine how that would feel anyway. I mean, I know what it feels like whenever I have discovered a resistance and let it go. I recognize that feeling. So, yeah, I could see that happening again this week. And when it does happen and I feel it and I'm able to let it go, that feeling of relief is palpable. It's a very, very nice feeling whenever you have that relief feeling, Because whenever you have that relief feeling, it means you let go of something that you were using to block with. And it's like, oh, your whole muscle structure just relaxed. Like, oh, thank God that's gone.
So following that train of storytelling, of it becoming an artist of telling a better feeling story, we could, like, you could sit down with a journal and start telling a story, and then every day you could get out that journal and say, what's the story I'm telling today about allowing these things to happen in my life that I've been wanting to have happen? What is it that I'm now telling myself today, and what would I like to tell myself today? And could we do it in a way that it's not a hype to us? It's actually believable, and it actually feels like, we're starting to convince ourselves, of course this is in my vortex. Like if I want better feeling health, and what do I tell myself that keeps my health from not being in the best that it could possibly be? I know one story I tell myself is about sugar, that well, the sugar is setting me back, and every time I have sugar, I have a setback, and I have to be very, very careful about any kind of sweetener in my diet. And so how could I tell myself that story in a way that somehow, allows a change to take place in my body? Because all my cells are just following the orders of my mental, emotional story, the way I see it. But for example, in the area of health, it seems like, well, that seems hard, because I've been wanting to have better health in that area of my life for a really, really long time. And yet I have had constantly improving health, and I see how my symptoms have cut down a whole lot from my sinus condition by not having sugar in my life. So maybe it's not the fact that I really want to get to the place where I eat more sugar. I want to get to the place where I just don't have these symptoms any longer. So if that means eating less sugar, maybe I'm just fine eating less sugar. And maybe my story I want to tell myself is about how much I enjoy eating the foods that don't have sugar, because these long periods I go with no symptoms, and how great that feels. And then when I add a little wine back to my diet, or I add a little chocolate, then I start having symptoms again. And maybe I can become less of a trigger around those things. But I also love just not having them in my diet, because I feel so good when they're not in my diet. And I like feeling good. That's what I like. I like just feeling healthy. And so,
which is ultimately what it's about: feeling good, feeling healthy. That's it right there. That's the medicine. That's the cure.
Yeah.
That's where it all happens. I mean, it's like Abraham pointed out in I think it was in The Astonishing Power of Emotions. They pointed out that if you're somebody who's dealing with a weight issue, and you're deciding whether or not to go into an ice cream parlor, you could go into an ice cream parlor and eat 1,000 gallons of ice cream, or you could never go into an ice cream parlor for 1,000 days. And either way, the result would be the same if your emotional state has stayed the same. The only thing that matters is your emotional state. If you change your emotional state so that you're in a happy vibrational place, you could go in, eat 1,000 tubs of ice cream, presumably without getting sick. I'm not sure how you do that. But you could theoretically eat that much and not put on a single pound of weight. On the other hand, you could not go in and not eat any of it and just feel miserable and still put on a pound of weight. It could work either way. It just depends on what your emotional state is. So, I mean, and that to me is like one of the starkest examples they've ever given. I loved it for that reason, because it's so stark. It's so blatant. In fact, Wendy Dillard and I, we discussed that at one point, and when I discussed it with her, her reaction was, I know I read that before. I bet you I skipped right over it because I just didn't believe it. But now she's in a place where she does believe it, and she's actually adopted a new mode to weight and to health that refuses to put restrictive rules on herself. She doesn't buy into the rules anymore. Now the only rule is feel good. And then she taps into her inner being and says, okay, I'm feeling pretty good now. Is this something I can have? And she gets a message of either yes or no. And sometimes when it gets no, she gets a message of no. She says, oh, all right. Or to her surprise, she gets the message, yes, go ahead, have one piece. and that was like in relation to pizza, I believe. And
Yeah.
her first reaction was, "What? Just one piece?" And her reader being says, "One piece is all you need. You need to satisfy your need, and you need to have some food. It's okay. You can have one piece." Oh, okay. So now all the rules about sugar and about non-saturated fats and saturated fats and all the other stuff that's out there, those limiting beliefs that are associated with that all get wiped aside because the only thing that matters is how do you feel? Are you in alignment?
Yeah.
And the amazing thing that she's been experiencing, now she hasn't done it long enough that she feels confident to write a book about it yet, but the amazing thing she's experienced is that she just continues to follow this rule of being in alignment and asking her inner being, is it okay to have this? And just following whatever the answer is, that very slowly the pounds are melting off of her. Without any stress, without any food rules or anything, just by keeping her mindset the way it needs to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing a lot with my diet too, as far as getting rid of this long-term sinus condition I've had. It's just that I've actually been doing that now for several years because of Abraham and because of what I've learned about law of attraction. And I just feel in my intuition, like, what should I eat now? What should I eat now? And lately, it's really funny because I've been letting myself have a lot more sweets than I have in several years, and not, like a huge amount, but more than I've had in several years. And I'm having very little, if any, reaction to that. And I find that so much of it is just that ease that I have around the fact that that everything is malleable. Everything is constantly changing, and there is no. And of course, I refuse to call my conditions. I generally don't call it sinusitis. I use that name so that people know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I really don't to myself. I don't say, "Oh, I have sinusitis," or "I have candida," or "I have this or that." I have a sugar problem.
What do you say to yourself?
I just say that, what would I like to eat now? And then, of course but I say the same thing when I'm in the natural food store. I don't, and I only buy the things that I think are going to work, So it's like, I don't just go blatantly in the face of, last night I blatantly at the end of the evening, I had some chocolate, and it had a pretty high cane sugar content. And I said, I'm just going to see what happens because I feel really good. And this might not have any reaction on me whatsoever. And then I woke up at like 3 a.m. with a reaction from it. And I had to deal with that reaction for a while. But I felt like, well, did I create that by leaving it open-ended, by saying, let's see what happens? Could I have told the story that this is not going to affect me? I'm going to be fine, even though I had this. Like, I had some wine on Saturday evening, and I don't usually have it because it usually has a reaction. And so I said, I'm going to have a small amount, and I'm just going to be good with it. And I was completely good. I didn't have any of the reactions I've had before when I've had wine. And I find that there's never such a thing as a static, definite reaction, of course, unless I really believe strongly in that.
That's right. Exactly.
And that when it comes to telling better feeling stories, what they're saying, what Abraham is saying, is that it's possible to tell a story that you believe so much, or that you tell enough, that it is a prophetic story. It's a story of of not what is. It's a story of what could be. It's a possibility story, and you tell that story, and yet you immerse yourself in it, and you tell yourself reasons why that's possible. Like when you were telling the story of, why is it possible this week to make a change in your life that has not yet happened, and you've been wanting to have that change happen for, say, 5 years or a year or whatever, and yet you're saying that could happen this week. And so every day, you practice telling the story in a way that you're opening up that possibility for that malleable thing to actually happen, and getting out ahead of the condition that said, well, this hasn't changed in a long time. It's probably not going to change this week, but, I'm going to take steps in that direction. And instead say, it could definitely change this week. I completely could believe that it could change this week. And I'm going to work on, like, doing little things, that extra happiness that I am so much into having in my life. Or I'm going to actually get out a journal and write about this new, better feeling experience that I am creating. I'm conjuring it up, and allow that to happen.
And like you said, if this is something that was 5 years that I've been dealing with, or a year or whatever, it's something that's been long term. In those situations, I've learned that it's best if I don't keep score.
Yeah.
I want this thing to happen this week, but I don't keep score about that.
Yeah. I
Because
understand.
that's just whenever something is long term, it means I have a long term habit of reacting built up, in which my reaction is always I keep the score and I don't see the result, and therefore on some level I feel a little bit less, which is
Yeah,
the
like you're
exact opposite
failing.
of what I want to feel. Right. So I deliberately avoid keeping score on anything that I've been working on for a long time, because by not keeping score, now there's only one thing to quote keep score about, and that is how do I feel.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I keep score about. How do I feel? Now I don't have to worry about did I attract it this week. All I'm
Yeah.
focused on is am I feeling happy?
Hmm.
Can I improve my happiness level? Now
Yeah.
that's the only thing I have to keep score about. And when I do that, that's when the serendipities happen. That's when the crazy stuff happens, where life kind of molds itself into this whole new thing, and you look back at it and you say, "How the bleep did that happen?"
Yeah. Yeah. So it all just goes hand in hand in my mind. It's like I am definitely creating this brand new group coaching program, and it's going to be incredibly successful, and it's going to make really nice money, and I'm going to really be able to serve a larger amount of clients in less amount of time, and people will get tremendous benefit from being in a group coaching situation like that, because they
Mm,
have each other to learn from, and besides my input
that's
and the
nice. I like that when
kind
that
of
happens.
coaching that we'll do.
Yeah.
And so telling that story, just like if I want a new relationship and I tell the story of the, there's no reason why I couldn't allow into my life that relationship, that it can, I can know that it's in my vortex. I've been putting these things into my vortex for a long time. I mean, the improved coaching situation, the improved income situation, the improved relationship, the improved health. Um, I was noticing the other day, and actually commenting to a friend of mine who's had a physical health situation similar to mine. I was saying to her, that I'm actually hardly having symptoms at all anymore. And she said, "That's incredible." And I realized that that's just another fantastic story that I'm adding to my repertoire around my health. That I'm actually starting to go through long periods where I no longer even experience the symptoms I used to feel at all.
That's nice.
Instead of a little bit of them. And why can't that be true in every situation we want? Like
Sure.
I'm no longer, dealing with lack of money. I'm no longer dealing with conditions in a relationship that are really unpleasant, or that things that I don't want to be experiencing. I am letting myself have the kind of relationship that I've always longed for, and I'm letting that in. I'm letting that ideal relationship show up in my life. And there's no reason why the universe won't give me that. The universe is always trying to give me what I want. And how can I just, I'm opening up to it. I'm telling the story of it being here. I'm
Mm.
telling the story of how wonderful it is to have it like that. And I'm writing it down in my journal. And my affirmations are all about the fact that I have that. It is here. I'm letting it in.
By the way, I
And
love the part of the story you told a few minutes ago about how you tried the chocolate, which had a rather high sugar content to it, and you were wondering, what would be the result? Would you get a reaction out of it? And in the middle of the night, you did have a reaction, and
yeah.
you said something which was really rather interesting. You said, I wonder where that came from. Well, that was a great question to ask, because, like I was talking about before, how when we're focusing on trying to uncover the various ways we resist our own desires, and if we can find a way to remove those resistances, the desires that are already strong become evidently strong anyway. The strongness, the strength of them becomes more obvious to ourselves. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to discover the resistances so we can let go of them. Well, I think your experiment worked. I mean, you said your experiment was, I wonder if I will get a reaction, and you did. It was almost like it was an opportunity for you to say, "Gee, I wonder why I reacted," because I know if I'm in a high vibration place and have that chocolate, I won't have a reaction. But I had a reaction. I wonder where in me I was resisting. There must be a resistance there somewhere. I wonder if I can let it go. I wonder if I can let that resistance go. Because if I can let that resistance go, boy, won't that be a great thing? Now I can eat chocolate and not have a reaction.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that one reason that I had the reaction is, and this is what sort of dawned on me at 3 a.m, was that because I left it open ended, I said,
Yeah, you did, which was
I
great, I
said,
thought.
well, and it was and it wasn't. Because, see, I didn't leave it open ended on Saturday night when I had some wine. I actually said, um, I'm going to have a little bit of wine and it's going to be fine. I'm going to be
Oh,
fine.
I see what you mean. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
So
stronger
with
that
the
way.
chocolate, I didn't do that. I left it open ended. I said, oh, I wonder if this is going to affect me because I've been feeling so good. And I know part of myself said, maybe it won't.
Mm.
The other part of me said, well, we'll see, Tom. We're going to see if you have a reaction. Well,
There was a little
I
resistance
mean,
going on there. There it was.
well, that set me up
Yeah.
perhaps for something in me wanted to prove that you can't do that. You can't do that. Because that's what I've been like learning over the years, that no, you can't have sugar, and not in
Hmm.
that form. You can't have any cane sugar, and you can hardly have any other sweetener. And I've heard myself say that to people so many times over the years, since I've been trying to, get rid of these candida symptoms, this sinus symptoms.
Right.
But I always look at it from law of attraction perspective now and going, Tom, as long as you're saying that sugar is a problem in your life, it will be. You know that.
Isn't that
As
something? It
long
just
as
drives
you're
you nuts.
wondering, can I eat that? Well, then, of course, it's going to be a hair trigger for you, and you're going to get a reaction maybe.
We do
So,
such numbers on ourselves. We really do. It's just amazing. All the different ways we trap ourselves. We're so good at that.
but see, you don't want to tell that story.
I don't want to tell
See,
that story, but nevertheless, I still observe it and I say, well, okay, now that I
well,
recognize it, now there it is. I've got a resistance there. How do I let go of that resistance?
right, and you let go of it by telling a completely different
A
story.
different story, yeah.
So your story could be what around that? You could say, we've been
Well, I could
up
also
until
turn it,
this moment. I've told stories that I have resistance.
and
Go ahead.
now I could turn the story into, well, now that I recognize that, boy, it's going to feel so much better when I stop paying attention to all the different ways we block ourselves.
Yeah, it feels so much better. Yeah,
Ugh.
I'm completely, excited about the fact that I'm going to quit telling stories about how I block myself or how all
Yeah.
these resistances take place. I'm going to quit looking for understanding the resistance. I'm even going to quit talking about resistance. I'm going to start talking about allowing. I said, man, allowing is so much fun. How can I let in more happiness today? How can I allow more of what's in my vortex to flow to me today? It must be exciting. The fact that the universe is completely wants to give me this thing and they want to give it to me right now. There's nothing in life that wants me to wait to have my joy, that wants me to wait to have my fulfillment, my money, my brilliant career. It's like, it's no reason why that can't happen now, that my health can just be fantastic. My health can be wonderful. And I just am so tired of even talking about it in any other way, that I'm only going to tell stories about how fantastic it is. It's like if you wanted to make a movie about it, about your success, what would that movie be like? Would there have to be an incredible overcoming of a dramatic letting go of something, or could there just be you let it in and you let it in more and you let it in more, and before long it's just rolling. It's fantastic.
Well, if it was a movie, it would probably be the dramatic version because that's what movies tend to be. But
Well,
I see
and
your
we tend
point.
to
Your
make
point
them
is a
that
valid
way.
one, though.
We tend to make them that way. It's sort of like, I think I just got the thought about it like a garden. You go and you plant all these different seeds. You plant your chard and you plant your kale and you plant your corn and you plant your peas and everything. And then it's like, does the garden go through a dramatic, like angst ridden realization of the fact that it's going to have to somehow let these seeds sprout and come up through the earth, and it's just a huge trauma and drama? Or is it just this really beautiful natural unfolding? And I think it's just, everything is actually meant to be a really beautiful natural unfolding of the thing that we want. But what we add angst into it, we add worry and fear into it. We tell a story of why it didn't work in the past. We're historians, we base everything on the last moment rather than a brand new moment. I remember I came to this point when I was making all these changes in my life with law of attraction, where I would literally say to my friends, it's like if I was tempted to tell the old story or to feel the old way things had been with me, I would say, well, it used to be, that I had these intense sinus symptoms and I would get these really bad earaches and these headaches. He says, but now I'm moving completely beyond that, knowing that I had just had that headache 30 seconds before I said that. I just had that terrible sensation in my ear 30 seconds before I said it, but I would talk as if I was moving into a new place, a new, better feeling place. And even if the thing has happened right up till today, that doesn't mean that it has to keep happening.
Yeah, I experienced something like that. Oh, when was it? It was sometime within the last week or two. I can't remember exactly when. I think I even mentioned it on a podcast. But there was one day, I think it was maybe a week ago Saturday, where I had a lot of pain because of this knee issue that I've got. Basically, I injured a ligament in my left knee. In fact, over the weekend, I figured out which ligament it was. But anyway, I had this ligament issue, and this was a day where I really reinforced for myself the value of icing, because icing reduced the pain dramatically. So clearly, there was some inflammation going on that I didn't know about. But the point that I wanted to make here is, when I was experiencing that pain, I was using it as an opportunity to practice changing my perspective about what is. Because the what is was clearly, I'm in pain. And we've talked about, you and I and other co-hosts, we've all talked about how when your what is pain, it's really, really hard to shift your perspective to something else, because all you can feel is that pain. Well, I said, okay, I don't like this pain, but you know what? I want to use this as an opportunity to do some weightlifting, so to speak. I'm going to do some mental weightlifting to see, can I really push myself into focusing on no pain? I'm focusing feeling good in the midst of this pain. And what I discovered is, I got to a point where I was focusing on the sore spot in my knee, and then I would do my little thing where I said, well, I have a healthy knee over on the other leg, so I'll focus on that knee, and I'll pretend that knee and how that knee feels is how the other knee feels. And when I was able to do that successfully and stay focused there, the pain in the first knee went away. And then all of a sudden I'd get distracted, and boom, the pain would be back. And then I'd say, okay, let's rip myself over again. I'm going to focus. I'm only focusing on that right knee that feels good. And that's the way my left knee feels. My left knee feels just like that right knee. And I'm focusing with all my might on that right knee, and the pain would go away. And it was instantaneous. The pain would go away, it would come back. It would go away, it would come back. Showing me just how powerful my mind is when it comes to experiencing pain. Like, holy cow. Wow.
Yeah, that's the whole placebo effect thing, that what you believe is really as powerful as any drug. And I think in some cases they've proven it's more powerful than a lot of drugs, because and then of course maybe the drug only works, largely because we believe that it will. And
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And really what I was doing with that exercise, I was empowering myself. I was empowering myself to trust more in my own ability to focus on what I want and keep my focus off what I don't want.
Yeah.
Because I had direct experience. It's not often we get that kind of quick reaction from law of attraction in a way that we recognize, so that we can play with it a little bit and say, yep, I feel the pain. Nope, I've turned off the pain. Yes, I've turned it back on. No, I've turned it back off. Because that's how you learn how to do it more deliberately, right? That's how you learn to kind of control the muscle that we've been talking about. So not only are we making the muscle stronger, we're also learning how to control it, how to make it operate the way we want it to operate. Well, that's pretty cool to learn that.
And I wonder if it's not actually more the way to transform than anything else. It's to tell this new, better feeling story.
Absolutely.
To tell it the way we want it. And then to, like you say, develop that muscle. Well, I
was telling a better story. The story I was telling was, my left knee feels like my right knee, and my right knee feels great. So that was the story right there. And you're right. It's exactly what I was doing.
Exactly. And that's all I'm saying is that, because there's part of me, for example, I have the same thing with my psoas muscle, which is the big muscle, in your in your rib cage area that connects down to your upper thigh, and it's like it's your bending muscle, and it's one of the most powerful muscles in your body. And on my left side, that my story is that muscle has gotten way overused and traumatized throughout, using it for every kind of activity in my life, from snow shoveling to vacuuming to lifting to everything. and so on my left side, it's now traumatized, and so I've been working on letting it go for several years now. And I feel like I'm getting better and better, because I used to literally go out on a walk, and I would list to the left side as I walked, and literally would be almost like starting to tip my body over. And so I've been stretching and letting it go, and stretching and letting it go, and doing the same thing you're doing, of imagining the psoas on my right side, which is completely healthy, as it seems to have no trauma whatsoever. Right. And imagine that, that not only can my left side be the same, but it can, the right side can help my left side be even more relaxed, so I'm sending a lot of love to my left side, telling it that, I'm sorry I've overused you so much in my life, but I'm now allowing you to relax. I'm letting the two psoas muscles be harmonious twins that take care of my lifting and my bending just fine, and I'm healthy. And now my walks are healthy, and so I work on that a lot, and but there really is only that one thing to do, and that's to tell that better feeling story. And sometimes I want to understand the resistance more, but then I realize that's really not necessary. I don't have to understand why it's still resisting. I don't think I have to understand that. I think what I need to do is just keep telling the better feeling story of how it's healing. It's healed. In fact, that it is healed, and everything's really okay. And that's where I notice in the morning, often when I wake up, about how I watch myself download these problems into my body. I watch myself download the tight psoas. I watch myself download sinus symptoms. Watch myself download worry about different things in my life that I worry about. And it's really funny to see that, because then I realize, well, I've been with Source during the night, and now I'm picking up my problems again.
That's so crazy, though, that you have that level of awareness. I mean, really, that's fantastic. I say crazy because that's, in the old.
Oh, it's not like that every morning, but it's happened enough. It's happened enough that I can see the complete difference between being in that state of connecting to Source and problem-free, worry-free, and then picking up these things again.
Now, do you find that gives you insight? Does it give you the ability to differentiate easier or anything like that? Does it help?
Yes, it helps, because I know that my real state is completely okay, and that, my default state is joy. My default state is ease. It is relaxed muscles. It is no sinus symptoms. It is the relationship I want. It is the money I want. It is everything that I want is really there. So I know that, and it makes me long for it. And then, and it also convinces me that it's just all these games I'm playing with myself that are convincing me that I still have problems, but I don't really have problems. I'm really in a very enlightened, beautiful state, of joy and inner fulfillment. And now every day is just about getting myself to ease up on that and tell that story in every area of my life, and every time I catch myself telling the problematic story, that it's hard to get this money, or it's hard to have this relationship the way I want it, or it's hard to have my sinuses not bother me, or whatever I call hard and difficult and stressful, I notice myself saying it, and then I say, that's not where it's at. That's completely not what's happening.
Have you noticed yourself not downloading any of those downloads? Because you said you've experienced this a few times at least, and I'm wondering if you compare the later ones with the earlier ones, were there any downloads that you have somehow managed to stop downloading? The ones, because the downloads you're talking about are the ones you don't want, right? The ones that you're trying to avoid. Have you managed to stop downloading any of them?
I think I've stopped. I've been stopping downloading that kind of stuff ever since I really got into Abraham 4 years ago. 5 years ago. Well, yeah, it's been this continual less problem and more solution. My life is less problem always. And I look at every situation in my life as, if I'm decluttering or I'm creating something, it's like, how can this be an easier task than it was before? How can I let my intuition show me, how can I receive the impulses from source more than I did yesterday? It's just like you ask, every day, how am I a little happier today than I was yesterday? How am I able to figure out how to solve this problem on my computer in a more easy way than I did yesterday? How can I look for the solution in everything, in my diet, in my relationships? What's the solution here? What's the ease that's already in my vortex? How can I let in this good stuff the universe wants to give me?
One of the best things I've been learning lately is I've been learning to differentiate between problems I want to solve and problems that I refuse to solve. And the ones that I refuse to solve are the ones that the universe brought to me, usually from somebody else, because I kept working on and focusing on problems. A good example of that is a situation that happened with my sister the other day. My sister contacted me because she contacted me right before a podcast.
It was Friday morning before our podcast.
That's right. And she contacted me and said, my computer isn't working. And, it won't start up. And my reaction was, well, I'm about to do a podcast. I'll talk to you in an hour. So I contacted her after the podcast, and she described what was happening. And I said, well, she said, I think one of the fans isn't working. I said, well, obviously you want to get that fixed. I mean, we had talked about her getting a cooling pad to help keep the thing cool. But where a computer is concerned, the fans that they build in, they build them in with deliberate purpose and intent to give the maximum cooling benefits. So if you have a fan that isn't working, wherever possible, you want a technician to go in and replace the fan. And that was it. That was all I did. I said to myself, I really don't want to solve this problem. I mean, I'm 700 miles away. I'm really the last person to solve this problem. This is something that needs to be solved locally, and so I'm just going to kick it back into her court, and I'm done with it. And sometime later, actually, I think it was within 24 hours, she got back to me with a text message that said she had hired a friend of hers who knew how to do this to open up the computer, and he ended up cleaning it out. Apparently, it was chock full of dust and cat hair and all kinds of stuff, and that's why the fan couldn't turn. So it didn't even need a new fan. It just needed to be cleaned out. But because I let go of that, it basically enabled her to go find a local solution. I didn't have to solve that problem. And as a result, she solved it a lot faster.
Wow, that's
so
great.
It was a win-win. Now, all of a sudden, I send out a signal to the universe. I'm done with receiving problems. You don't have to send me anymore. I just solved. I solved by saying it's yours. Go away.
Yeah.
And my sister went out and
solved problems.
My sister went out and solved the problem by finding a friend who knew how to open up a computer and how to figure out what's going on. And it got solved. The computer's working great now. And not only that, it's clean inside, which is good things with a computer. You especially want that because that's how you dissipate heat, because heat will kill a computer faster than anything. So this was a big win-win. But it was especially a win for me because I let go. I wasn't going to solve the problem.
Right.
It wasn't mine to solve.
But you broadcast solution. You broadcast that.
I did.
This my sister will solve this. The universe will solve this for her. I'm 700 miles away. I don't need to get involved in this. I don't want this in my day. So you were telling to yourself all those different stories about why this thing could just get taken care of. And I think that's the key to telling better feeling stories, is that start noticing all day long, like, what am I telling myself about this? What am I telling myself about this? What am I telling myself about this? Because if it's that old story, if it's got, the history in it, and it's repeating the problem, and it's saying how difficult it is, or it's saying how long it takes, or it's saying that, I don't deserve that, or how could that ever happen? Or, that's impossible for me to ask for that, then those are all the red flags that say, wait a minute, I can have, I'm the creator of my life. I'm creating this reality. I can broadcast whatever I'm broadcasting. That's what I'm going to get back. What could I broadcast a little different in this arena? What could I broadcast a little different about this relationship? What could I broadcast a little different about my health today? About, some concern I have, how can I think of it in a different way? And maybe it's that I don't know. To me, it's just like magic. I'm magic. How can I tap into my magic?
Absolutely.
And,
Well, not only are you magic, but you've used up all our time, so we got to stop right there. But this has
oh,
been great, and I look forward to talking to you again next Friday. How's that sound?
okay, that sounds good.
All right. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.